Okay. Hello, everyone. Thank you all for being here. It's a very intimate group today. So my name is Ava, and I am a Climate Resilience Program Coordinator with Daily Acts. Big thanks to the City of Petaluma for sponsoring this presentation and to our collaborators, which is Harper and Kyle of Project Superplants. I'm personally very excited to be hearing their presentation. Project Superplants is a youth-led and created organization that creates waves of youth planting activism within schools and communities. Again, I'm really excited to hear from them, and they'll elaborate more on their work. Before we dive in, I am going to note that this is, you might have noticed, a meeting and not a webinar format, meaning that you were all able to turn on your cameras if comfortable, use the chat to communicate, and Harper and Kyle will have interactive components, so feel free to unmute yourself when is appropriate. So before we dive into their presentation, I'm going to give a brief summary of Daily Acts and who we are. So for those who are unfamiliar with our organization, Daily Acts is an environmental education nonprofit based out of Petaluma, California. We work mainly throughout Sonoma County, but are partnering beyond. We strive to make connected, equitable, and climate resilient communities by giving people the tools and knowledge to make a positive impact on their environment while still maintaining a full lifestyle. At Daily Acts, we believe in the power of daily actions, hence the name of the organization, and we strive to connect the community and inspire positive change. We do this by remote educational programs, such as this one, in-person educational programs, action campaigns, mobilizations, and also by influencing policy. So that's a high level about who we are. So I'm going to pass it over to Harper and Kyle. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can hear all about Project Superplants and the amazing work that they're doing.
Thank you, Ava. We're incredibly excited to be presenting tonight and to be working with Daily Acts. I'm Harper Fortgang. I'm a freshman at the Nueva School and I live in San Francisco. I founded Project Superplants a few years ago in 2020, and I lead our team of 11 high schoolers from multiple schools across the Bay Area. Outside of school, I'm focused on environmental activism, and inside of school, I'm really passionate about science and learning about innovative solutions to combat climate change. And I'm joined tonight by my teammate, Kyle Wan. Kyle, can you introduce yourself?
Hello, I'm Kyle. I'm an 8th grader at Proof School, and I live in Palo Alto. I've been a part of the Superplants team for about a year now, and I'm really interested in learning more about biology and ways we can use biology and innovations to help our environment.
Awesome. So I'm going to share screen with our presentation in a second. Since we're a smaller group tonight, we can have more interactive discussions and time for questions if you're interested in sharing your perspective or asking a question or contributing via chat. Let me share here. All right. Can everyone give us a thumbs up if you can see everything? Awesome. Okay, so as a quick overview of what we're covering tonight, we'll talk about our project and give some more background about what we do. We'll discuss the threats of climate change. We'll talk more about the science behind GMO and native superplants and give you some tips for carbon gardening in your own backyard. We'll share our perspective working with adults and other youth, and then we'll share how you can bring our project into your school. You can feel free to pop questions in the chat at any time or at the end, and we'll try to answer them throughout. All right. So as a brief overview of Project Superplants, we aim to educate students about the threats of CO2 emissions, activate them to grow superplants, and mobilize them to take action in their schools, homes, and communities. We're heading into classrooms across the North Bay, up to Santa Rosa, to the East Bay, the South Bay, and San Francisco. And we're growing superplants, plants that grow larger, more durable root systems to combat climate change. And we'll talk about the science behind these later. As I said before, we're a team of 11 high schoolers from multiple schools in the Bay Area, and we've reached over 1,000 students, grown 17,000 plus superplant seeds, and connected with tons of teachers and community leaders. So the project started a few years ago when a team of us entered the ARECO Challenge, which is a science competition through EarthEcho International, where middle school students propose innovative solutions to protect biodiversity. And we started by looking at our local ecosystem and identifying threats, and then proposing a solution to preserve, protect, and repair our local biodiversity. I vividly remember the ARECO Challenge final event on a hot August day in 2020. It also happened to be the day before my 13th birthday. And we were competing against 50 teams from across the US. We were about to hop on a webinar and meet with judges and present to 450 people from around the world. So we were excited, but also very nervous. And right before the event happened, we went around and did a team gratitude circle to prepare us for what was about to happen. And amazingly, we were among one of the winners and received a $5,000 grant to implement Project Superplants. It was a great birthday gift. And since then, our project has grown a lot. We've expanded our leadership team and expanded our reach all throughout Northern California. Now we're starting to partner with organizations like we're working with Daily Acts for this presentation to scale up our impact. So all of us on this call know the huge threats to our biodiversity. Here in Northern California, we're one of the nation's 6 biodiversity hotspots. Our diverse habitats range from the Sonoma Mountains, the Marin Headlands, to Pepperwood Preserve. But over the past year alone, we've seen many threats to our biodiversity. Massive wildfires, especially up in the North Bay, droughts that are exacerbating these wildfires, huge rainstorms that are being intensified by climate change. All of these natural disasters are putting biodiversity at major risk. 1 million plants and animals are at risk of extinction worldwide, and 300 are at risk in California alone. And here in Northern California, we're losing the salt marsh harvest mouse, which is this tiny little cute mouse that's lost 90% of its marsh habitat due to human impact. So that's why it's more important than ever that we take action to protect and repair our biodiversity so that our ecosystems can thrive. Okay, I want to stop for a second and ask all of you, what's your favorite natural area that you love and couldn't live without? And you can share via chat or unmute. And while you're thinking, I'll share my favorite natural area. I'm a big birder. I love bird watching, especially in Golden Gate Park and along Crissy Field marshes in San Francisco. And I hope that these areas remain safe habitats for birds for my generation and for future generations so that they can go bird watching there. I see Beth in the chat says Mount Tam, Jenner Headlands. Yeah, I love walking on Mount Tam, is gorgeous. The Marin Headlands are amazing. Yeah, California has so many unique habitats, but all of these are at risk. And one of the biggest drivers of climate change and global warming are CO2 emissions. Every year, we emit 34 gigatons of CO2. The amount of CO2 we emit is equivalent to 185.5 million blue whales. And as you can see on this slide, our emissions have been skyrocketing. They've increased 89% in the past 40 years. In 1980, we emitted 18 gigatons, and in 2020, we emitted a whopping 34. As you all know, CO2 contributes to global warming through the greenhouse effect, trapping the CO2 in the atmosphere, making it hotter and hotter. And that raises our temperatures, which worsen droughts, that worsen wildfires. It melts icebergs, which then raise sea levels and flood our marshes and wetlands. It evaporates more moisture to intensify rainstorms, and so many other scary impacts. So bottom line, by reducing CO2 emissions, we can protect and repair biodiversity. All right, let's stop for another quick interactive question. You can unmute or chat. Climate change often feels like it's far away on the other side of the world, melting icebergs in Antarctica. But where have you seen the effects of climate change directly in your community? And I'll start off by saying a couple of months ago, all of us in California were experiencing massive rainstorms caused by hotter temperatures, which evaporate water and then create more fuel for rainstorms. And my school was closed for 2 days because of the flooding and wind conditions. And I have friends and teachers whose homes were flooded. And I remember Kyle and I were about to run a booth at the North Bay Science Discovery Day, and we were worried that the driving conditions, because of all the rain and the winds, would not allow us to even get up there. But eventually we did, which is good. Okay, so in the chat, share what's one way that you have seen the threats of climate change in your community. Kyle, do you have any personal experiences?
What comes to mind is those days, like maybe a few years back, where the sky was just like orange and like red, where the wildfires were so bad that the sky was like orange, the air quality was really bad, and school was also closed for quite a while because of those wildfires.
Yeah, this is not the first time school has been closed from climate change related impacts. Okay, I see Beth in the chat, loss of redwood trees and Monterey pine trees. Definitely, especially because of like human just deforestation to build urban areas. Lots of fog in San Francisco because of the heat in the Central Valley. Yeah, San Francisco just sucks in all of that fog because of the whole heat system in California, and it's been pretty foggy over the past couple of weeks here. Yeah, and fire season, yes, that has been growing hugely. All right, now I'm going to pass it off to Kyle to talk about how we are educating students about these threats to climate change through classroom sessions.
Okay, so one of the main ways that we make an impact on education is in our classroom sessions. So in our classroom sessions, we visit elementary or middle and sometimes high schools around the Bay Area. During these sessions, we have about half an hour to 45-minute presentations about simplified science behind Project Superplants, our inspiration for Project Superplants, and we also talk about how students that we are presenting to can make an impact on our environment. if we have enough time, we also do activities during our presentation, like the one in the center image, where fifth graders at McNear Elementary School are brainstorming why healthy biodiversity is important for ecosystems. Personally, for me, one of my favorite activities is when we have the students brainstorm ways a plant could be genetically modified to solve a problem. And it's pretty funny and entertaining because especially younger students are so creative, and their answers are very great. So I remember a student who brainstormed a plant that could grow bread to solve hunger, and another student who brainstormed a plant that could get up and move. So while the ideas are pretty funny at times, I'm also really impressed with some of the ideas they come up with. So a student came up with the idea of a plant that needed less water to help sustainability, and a plant that could survive in harsher conditions. So during these sessions, we also try to actually plant with the students, like after the presentation. So we bring in seeds and the teachers find soil and places to plant the seeds. And we do a quick demo planting during the presentation. Then we give the seeds to the students and they can plant their own plants and maybe decorate their pot or their garden. In total, we've had classroom sessions in 17 different schools and 35 different classrooms. And we've presented to over 1,000 students, and well over 10,000 seeds have been planted. And if you want to bring super plants into your own classroom or your local school, you can contact us, but we'll have more information on that later.
These sessions are a foundation for ongoing activism, and it's really inspiring to work with these 3rd through 10th graders. After one session, a school in Rohnert Park decided to write letters to their city council and spread posters about super plants around their community. And a school in Petaluma planted super plants in their rain garden that they were actually creating with daily acts. So the super plants not only could intake CO2, but they could also support rain capture and prevent flooding. And then a group of 7th graders in Windsor are, after our presentation, are bringing the project into their lower elementary school classrooms. So we're not only planting literal super plant seeds, but we're also planting seeds of activism that will create a broader impact in the future.
Yeah, so we also run a wide range of other events. So we ran a booth at the North Bay Science Discovery Day, presenting to high schoolers about youth activism efforts, and also we're partnering with organizations. So Harper mentioned a little bit about the North Bay Science Discovery Day earlier, but essentially the North Bay Science Discovery Day was an event in Sonoma County where many different booths of various science exhibits were being run at the Sonoma County Fairgrounds. At the event, we ran a super plants booth, which attracted over 300 planters and over 1,000 visitors. We had an information section with a trifold of information, and we had a planting section where anyone could plant their own California melic grass. So I'm wondering, did anyone here hear of the North Bay Science Discovery Day, or do you know someone who attended?
If you haven't heard of it, it's a really exciting day if you have younger kids in your life. There are tons and tons of booths. There were like 50 or 60 hands-on science booths, and it was a fun day, and it was great to see so many other organizations with these sorts of activities. Okay, so shifting gears a bit, how did this project even get started? I want to talk about what we call our light bulb moment. I was learning about photosynthesis at the same time that here in the Bay Area, we could literally see and feel climate change. like Kyle mentioned earlier, we could see orange skies painted with wildfire, and ash was literally coating the ground. And I learned that plants naturally intake 25% of our CO2 emissions, but this isn't enough to keep up with our skyrocketing emissions. Suddenly, a light bulb went off in my head. I wondered, could we supercharge plants' ability to intake CO2 during photosynthesis to combat climate change? And I learned about these incredible super plants that sequester increased CO2. The Salk Institute's Harnessing Plants Initiative down in Southern California are genetically modifying plants to grow larger, more durable root systems that can intake more CO2 for a longer period of time to protect our environment. And I wanted to take action to combat climate change and share this really cool science with other students. And Kyle's going to talk a bit more about GMO and native superplants.
Yeah, so as Harper mentioned, scientists can now genetically modify a plant to increase their intake of carbon dioxide. So these plants are genetically modified to grow larger root systems, and those roots store more carbon dioxide. The diagram illustrates the difference between an unmodified plant and a superplant's root system. Modified root systems grow about 3 to 5 times larger than a normal plant's root system. But currently, only specific GMO crops are approved for public planting, but not any GMOs intended for carbon sequestration. These GMOs are non-native, and since they're GMOs, we don't know how they would react with their ecosystem. So we would only plant them if they were shown to be safe to plant. So instead, we're using a California native plant called California melic grass that is not genetically modified, but naturally has larger root systems, which are able to take in more CO2. It naturally grows larger root systems that are more durable and sturdy because they have adapted to California's wildfire and drought conditions. So as an example, California melic grass and many other California perennial grasses actually have adapted to reduce metabolism and stop growing for part of a yearly cycle, which is called summer dormancy. And because these grasses are already adapted to California's climate and have above average root systems and size, we can use this California melic grass as a safe and secure alternative for genetically modified superplants. So we are creating an education and activism campaign to plant these plants with students across the Bay Area.
Yes, and we are growing these native plants in school gardens. So we bring these seeds into classrooms, and then students get to get their hands in dirt and plant them around their school. So building on what Kyle said about genetically modified superplants, given plants store their CO2 in root systems, if we could modify the size, the shape, the depth of root systems, we might allow them to intake more CO2. So the scientists at the Salk Institute recently published a paper where they identified a specific gene that controls root systems. They discovered that this EXO70A3 gene controls a plant hormone called auxin. And then they divided plants into 2 haplogroups of this gene, meaning each haplogroup shared the same genetic version of this EXO70A3 gene. So haplogroup C naturally grew horizontal roots, and haplogroup H naturally grew vertical roots. And they concluded that this EXO gene controls root systems by acting on auxin. And we better understand how root system modulation works. So that's why they created the Harnessing Plants Initiative, so that they could apply this science to modify superplants' root systems to be able to intake more CO2. And these superplants have the potential to offset 20 to 46% of CO2 emissions. Let me just repeat that number, 20 to 46%. if we could scale these super plants to crops and aquatic plants to increase the impact. But like Kyle said earlier, since these super plants are non-native and they're genetically modified, we're not planting to, and we're not planning to plant them, and we don't plan to in the future. Instead, we're using native California grasses that naturally sequester more CO2 through their durable and large root systems. And there's a lot of really exciting research about carbon gardening methods, which involves planting the right plants and using the right gardening techniques to increase the amount of carbon that your garden can store. And we're not experts on this, but we have a couple of tips for how you can create your own carbon garden in your backyard. First, we suggest that you grow lots of California native grasses. We plant California millet grass with students, but purple needlegrass, California brome are also great options that sprout quickly and have these large and durable root systems that intake lots of CO2. And as a plus, they've also adapted to California drought conditions, so they survive on less water. It's also good to plant a variety of native plants because a variety of grasses will increase microbial activity in soil. And all those microbes will consume the carbon and store it for hundreds of years, keeping it out of the atmosphere. They'll also make the soil healthier, which increases plant productivity. And this is why you want to avoid adding invasive plants in your garden, because it will decrease the variety of plants and that slows the microbial activity in your garden. Next, don't till your soil and otherwise avoid disrupting your soil, because that will lead to faster release of carbon. And finally, add compost or other plant material on top, because that will support microorganisms and it'll prevent degradation of soil that will release carbon. So feel free to take a screenshot if you're interested in remembering these tips later. And if you're interested in learning more about carbon gardening, Daily Acts has a really awesome resource page with videos and explanations. I can put that in the chat later. And CNN also created a fascinating module about natural carbon sequestration. Here, I'll put it in chat right now. All right, those are the links to Daily Acts and to CNN. They're great, great modules. All right. So over the past 3 years of implementing our project, we've seen the importance of youth and adults working together. It's not just youth's responsibility, and it's not just adults' responsibility to solve climate change. We need youth and adults to work together to solve this crisis. And adults and youth each bring unique skills and perspectives. Adults have a lot of experience. Like when we were creating Project Superplants, we talked with native plant experts and teachers and organizations to learn from their knowledge. And youth, we bring energy and we think long-term about our future. And we need to combine both of these skill sets to make progress. And finally, we've come to see the power of youth mobilizing other youth. When a classroom of 7th graders listens to 9th graders, they're much more motivated to make a difference. And I mentioned that school in Windsor earlier, who, after we presented to their classroom, their 7th graders are bringing the project to their lower elementary school classrooms. That's a great example of youth-to-youth activism. It's youth to youth to youth. So whether you're 10 or 13 or 65, we all need to collaborate jointly to solve such a massive crisis. And adults, please encourage youth and give us space to share our voices. And thank you for listening to our voices tonight. We hope that you will join us to create a wave of planting activism. If you're a teacher, we would love to run 45-minute classroom sessions in your schools. If you're a family or a homeowner, you can grow carbon sequestering gardens, carbon gardens in your backyard. And if you know of teachers or organizations that might be interested in our project, we'd love to be introduced to them. And other youth, if you know of youth who are interested in the environment or interested in plants, they can help us implement our project and connect us with teachers. And here's our contact info on the slide, our website, Instagram, and email. All right, that is the end of our presentation, but we'd love to open it up for questions.
Yeah, so if you have questions, you can like unmute, or you can type your questions into the chat.
Okay, Ron asks, what can other environmental organizations do to support and promote Superplant's efforts? We would love to work with other organizations to scale our impact and to reach both adults and youth. So if you know of organizations that would be interested in supporting our project, please connect them with us. We would love to run webinars like this. We are interested in ways that we can bring Superplants into school curriculums. So please reach out to us if you're interested. Thanks.
Hi, I'm blown away by this. This is amazing. I've been a teacher in Novato Unified School District for 35 years. And I've been a garden instructor 5 of those years. And a head of the Novato garden instructors, but also involved, you might be involved with them as well, the Sonoma County Garden Network, which is tons of Sonoma County schools who have school gardens, and you might want to tap into them a little bit. I'm just so excited. I would love to bring this to Novato schools. And I feel that, you know, because I'm very entrenched in the district, that I could probably help you in opening that door into many classrooms. I know it sounds like you've done mostly Sonoma County schools, but if you would be willing to just come a little bit further south to Novato, that would be really awesome. So how do we sign you guys up?
Yeah, thank you so much. We would love to run sessions with Novato schools. We're actually based in San Francisco in the South Bay, so closer to us in the North Bay is better than Sonoma County. So we'd love to work with you, and if you are willing to connect us with teachers in Novato, that would be awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, we have a real tight garden network in Novato. All of our schools have school gardens. That happened years ago with a grant that, I don't know if the district wrote the grant, but high schools, middle school, elementary, every school in Novato has school gardens and school garden instructors. And so that's the in. And teachers love this because they're overwhelmed with more and more curriculum all the time. So science is the area that tends to get left behind. So teachers get very excited when someone can come in and bring any level of science to their students. And it sounds like you guys have this somewhat tried and true, a lot of practice. So yeah, it'd be really wonderful. If I'd love to have you at our schools. I mean, it wouldn't happen this year, but maybe next year.
Yeah, I think Superplants could be a great fit since Novato schools already have school gardens. They could definitely plant Superplants, and we've done lots of classroom sessions, and we could adapt them for whatever grades. We've done like from 3rd grade through 10th grade. So that would be awesome. Yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's just great. Because, you know, as a garden instructor and a permaculturist, when I was so blessed to get the garden instructor job when I retired, because teachers never really retire, they just keep working, but that's how it is. I was so excited. But I approached it not from, we're just going to look at seeds and plants, but we're going to look at more of a comprehensive environmental curriculum. And it's been fun, but it sounds like I could learn an awful lot from what you have been doing, because it's an area that I wanted to go deeper with the students. And so I'm just really excited that you guys are doing this. It's amazing. And you're so young. It's great. I just have the deepest respect for you. Wow. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for coming to hear us tonight.
Yeah. Thank you for attending.
I
Yeah.
wish more people did. If you offer this again, I'll definitely encourage, you know, a lot of school garden teachers to get involved and to listen.
And we are recording this as well, so you could share it to your partners or anybody who you would think is interested in hearing this information.
That's great. Yeah, are we going to get that sent to our email, the recording?
You will get a follow-up recording along with resources from Project Super Plants and resources from Daily Acts and other things we've talked about tonight.
That's great. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah.
And yeah, Beth, let's definitely communicate via email to see what we might be able to do next fall with Novato schools, because it sounds like it would be a great opportunity for both the kids and for us.
And I also wanted to ask you about homeschooled kids. I know a huge amount of kids that are homeschooling. My daughter's homeschooling her kids. And there's a homeschool pod in Marin County that involves about 20 kids that are involved. I think about 18 families, and they're middle school at this point. We're hoping to move it to high school, but it'd be great if we could work it out where you could come to that pod and present to them and maybe get them involved, because that's exactly what homeschoolers have time to do, is to be active and to follow their passion. So it'd be really great for them to hear from you and your story of how young you were when you got involved, and it would be inspirational to them. So that too would be great.
Yeah, that sounds great. If we could definitely come and lead a session with those 20 or so homeschooled students, and yeah, maybe they'd even be interested in expanding the project themselves, since they have more time to explore those sorts of things.
Yeah, absolutely. Mhm.
Yeah, we're also hoping next fall to create more of a self-contained module so that we don't have to go into every single classroom, and potentially create like videos and more of a curriculum that teachers could use without us coming every time. But we definitely love to come.
I was going to ask you about that, about trainings and workshops as a way of expanding, you know, so training teachers who then teach teachers, and your program can then start to open up even more, because it is hard. I mean, there's so many teachers, so many classrooms, and you can't possibly get to all of them. But when you plant that kind of, it's like mycelium, it just moves and spreads. And but training the teachers and the garden instructors, you know, your approach and some of the things that you've created, then they could teach teachers, kind of a thing.
Yeah, I think that's a really great idea of like training teachers to then take the project, because we can't be in every single classroom, but that would allow us to expand our impact a lot.
Yeah.
Happen to know of like any teacher conferences where we might be able to present to sort of train teachers to take this back to their school districts?
I don't really know of any conferences per se, But I do know that we have a new superintendent that getting more science in the classroom is her goal. So she may offer something like that, organizing some kind of conference. I'll have to look into it, but I don't know of any offhand.
And Harper, I know of a few up in Sonoma County that might be interested. They're very particular in what they like to present on, but I can definitely connect you because I think that teachers would really benefit from this. Daily Acts also would like to do a program with teachers around compost, which has to do more about the carbon sequestration of compost. And I feel like this could definitely be a partner program with Project Super Plants as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, it is the way to, it's amazing. You reach the kids, you reach the families because they take it home. I've done gleaning projects with kids and then the next day offered cooking classes to the parents where it was standing room only because the kids were involved and they were pushing their parents like, you have to go to the cooking class. We picked all this kale. You have to go to the cooking class to know how to cook it. So they're really pushing, and the parents are blown away that their kids will eat kale. So a way to really kind of move things is, from the youth to the adults, from the children to their parents. It's a great way to connect and hook adults into it. So the more you can do that, the better. So use the schools. Teachers are really thirsty and very open for this.
Yeah.
Harper, I'm sorry. I have a few questions about like how far you've ever gone with this distance wise, because you come up to Sonoma, which is a good distance from San Francisco, but is that about your radius or do you guys ever go further?
That is about our radius. We've gone up to Windsor. I think that's the farthest that we've gone. And then we've gone down to like Palo Alto area.
Nice. And then I'd love to hear the story too of how you have grown this since 2020. Recruiting, you said you have a team of 11, I believe. And how have you recruited those individuals? And how has this kind of, as Beth said, is mycelium, how has this network grown? Can you talk a little bit about that story?
Yeah, that's a great question. And we've definitely been growing a lot over the past 3 years, and we're hoping to grow even more. We initially, I think we were focused more on like, how can individuals plant, or like one classroom, how can they engage with our project? But then we had to shift to focus on classrooms and grades and schools doing plantings so that we could increase our impact. And that's helped us expand our project a lot, because instead of just doing one classroom, we do like a whole grade of 5th graders and 4th graders. In terms of expanding our team, we first expanded our team this fall to a team of, I think like 5 or 6 people after just having 3 people. And that like really fueled our project to keep moving forward, because we had new people and new ideas. And then that's why a couple of months ago, we decided to expand the team even further to 11 people. And next year, we hope to expand it to even more schools around the Bay Area, so that we can have even more energy and ideas behind the project.
Is everybody on your team San Francisco based, or is it all over the Bay?
We are all over the Bay. We have a teammate. Well, Kyle's down in Palo Alto.
Yeah, I'm in Palo Alto.
Nice.
So.
I'm in SF. We have a teammate who's in the Oakland area. Some more South Bay people.
That is really neat. Yeah. Now, also with teachers and schools, you said like it's for all ages and you have presentations that shift a lot, as in you have ones geared for younger ages and you have ones geared for older. But is there an age group that you feel really takes this up the most, or is the most excited about Project Super Plants?
Kyle, maybe you can jump in here too, because you've done a lot of this.
Mhm.
I think probably like 4th through 6th graders are the most eager to hear from older students, and they're just beginning to learn about climate change. So I think that's a really important time to share our perspectives. And they also really love hands-on planting activities.
Mhm. Yeah, I think each age range gives its own like unique like attitude and perspective towards our project. Like I think the younger children are very creative with their ideas, while the older children, like middle school maybe, actually can develop very great like ideas. Like their ideas are pretty amazing and they already know a fair bit about the topics we talk to them about, which makes it easier to go more in depth. And then also the really young students are just like adorable. So yeah.
It's fun. So for a teacher, like that sounds like you have some teachers you'd like to connect with Project Superplants. I know education can be a very hard job and 8 hours a day, and then you want to do things for the kids on top of that. So my question really is, how much work is this, or a commitment is this for teachers or schools to kind of sign up to do?
It's not a big commitment at all. We do a lot of the work. We like to meet with teachers through like a Zoom call in advance to coordinate on how the sessions will work and to like figure out how we want to adapt it to their grade level. And then we prepare the presentation and head into their classroom, and it's a 45-minute session around that. And we'll follow up with them afterwards about their super plants. And so it's not a huge commitment for teachers. We understand, especially after COVID, teachers are incredibly busy, and we want to make it as easy as possible to share this with other students.
That is so great. Also, do schools have to have a garden or a area for these plants to be planted in order to receive your education?
They do not have to have a garden. They can plant in like little containers. We encourage students to bring like recyclable like milk cartons or something to plant their super plants in. But having a garden is nice because the super plants may grow a bit better in like a natural environment.
Cool. So it's a bonus, but not not required. Nice. Thanks. I think that'll be helpful for teachers to have that understanding of the time commitment and the space or the space that isn't needed. So thanks for sharing all that. Any other questions from the crowd?
I do have a question. I'm really cautious when I bring up climate change to students, because it really does, for some students, it brings up this big scare. It kind of reminds me of the old atomic bomb when I was in school and hiding under my desk crying for my mom, because I thought the bomb was coming immediately. And I know my grandson, who's 15 now, I mean, when I try to talk to him about climate change, he just goes, stop it. I can't deal with it. It's too scary for me. So I don't use the term climate change with students. I use more of a, we have to be protectors of the earth because the earth is delicate like an egg. And we have to, how would you hold an egg? You have to hold the earth in the same way. But I'm really cautious about that. So I'm just curious as to how you approach this whole idea of, carbon in the atmosphere and the climate changing, and that we have to do something about it without creating, tension or stress, anxiety in the kids. Because I haven't found that answer yet.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think especially our generation, when we talk about climate change, like it's our future, and it's natural to feel very stressed and anxious about it. I think during our sessions, we try to show a lot of hope and examples of how like our project has made a difference and how they can make a difference so that it doesn't feel hopeless. We show them that like even people their age can make a difference. And I think also just giving specific like local examples of climate change and of solutions to climate change makes it feel less abstract and overwhelming, like a huge problem that's out of their control. But it's definitely a big problem for our generation. Like climate change is scary and it's difficult to talk about.
I like that. So you use the empowering approach, make them know that they have power over the situation. Yeah. Thank you. That's great. I do have one question too. When is the North Bay Science Discovery Day? Is it the same time every year?
Kyle, do you want to jump in?
Well, it was, I think, let's see, I don't remember the exact date, but the one we attended was a few months back, maybe.
It
What?
was
March. Okay. And I think it's every year. I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
I just looked it up and it looks like it is around the same time every year. And I'm seeing March 9th, 2024 as the next one.
Okay.
Sounds like it'd be a fun field trip though. Or
Absolutely.
stay with the family.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's a great event and there's so many students and families. So you should definitely encourage the students and kids that you know to come.
Sounds good. Yeah. All right. And then just one other thing, I'm sorry, I don't want to dominate. And you can say we don't want to talk about it, but I know I am deeply, deeply concerned, especially after listening to some congressmen, our own Jared Huffman as well, about the new budget deal and all the compromises they made on environmental protection laws. And like, you know, Jared Huffman, our congressman here in the North Bay, he didn't vote for the new budget deal because of the sacrifices that are being made to the environment. And Jeff Markle of Oregon is in the same boat. He couldn't possibly vote for it. And so anyway, I'm just concerned about that. And just kind of your take on that, like what influence do you see that you have over that kind of action? Do you ever go into that kind of activism where you get involved in the politics of it, or better to start at a local level?
I am not an expert on politics, but I'm definitely interested in how we can expand superplants to involve political advocacy. That group in Rohnert Park wrote to their city councils. I think it would be really interesting to start advocating like local, like in city local courts about, or not courts, sorry, governments about like climate literacy resolutions and having youth vote, having youth like be able to make an impact even if they can't vote on policy. But again, I am not an expert on policy. Okay, well, thank you so much for all of your questions and for joining us tonight. We have a really amazing opportunity with superplants because plants naturally absorb CO2 through photosynthesis. The earth can heal itself if we take the right steps. I want to end with one of my favorite quotes from the young Swedish climate activist Greta Thunberg, who says, "No one is too small to make a difference." So thank you for joining us, and with your help, I hope that we'll make a difference. So
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Special thanks to Ava for running and coordinating the webinar tonight, or the Zoom now. And thanks to Brianna Schaefer and Liz Platt-Bermeo for connecting me with Dailiacs. And yeah, thanks again for joining tonight.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everyone. And you'll all receive a follow-up email with a recording and again, resources on this topic. Thanks, Harper. Thanks, Kyle. Thanks, Project Super Plants.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone.